Marine fuels are dangerous and potentially hazardous to the environment. Therefore, it is wise to fill up all trailerable boats and portable fuel tanks on shore for safety's sake, to guard against spills. If your boat has an inbuilt fuel tank, turn off the battery beforehand. If you have a portable fuel tank, take it out of the boat to refill it. If your boat is to be refueled in the water, you must be particularly careful. If there is a refueling sign to warn passers-by to be careful, use it. If you are filling up at a bowser, turn off your motor, stove, shore power, refrigerator, generator and batteries, and close all doors and hatches before you start. Ask all your crew to go ashore. Make sure that no one smokes or uses a handheld radio or mobile phone nearby. If you're topping up your tanks from a portable container, never pour the fuel through a funnel into your tank. It is dangerous. You are very likely to spill some fuel. The only safe way is to siphon or pump the fuel through a hose from the container into the fuel tank. Make sure the end of the hose is in the boat tank before you start. When you've finished, check the bilge, fuel lines, and any internal fuel caps for leaks. You can then invite the crew back on board. Although there are many types of boats, they all have much in common. Before you set out, make sure yours is seaworthy. If you have a trailerable boat, it is wise to check it before you leave home, and if you do detect any problem, fix it before you get to the water. Check that the bung is in. Before operating any switches, check for fuel or LPG odors. Fix any faults immediately. Is the engine working properly? Test your outboard using a hose and fresh water for cooling. Check fuel, oil, and also your coolant levels if applicable. Fuel should be fresh, not last year's. Ensure you have enough, a third to get there, a third to get back, and a third in reserve. Inspect the battery and terminal connections. Top up if necessary. Charge prior to your trip, so you can be sure of starting up again out at sea. Ensure that the steering cables and connections are working well. Make sure your lights are working, even if you do intend to be back before dark. Take the essential tools and spare parts appropriate for your boat. Check that you have an approved anchor and that your anchor ropes and mooring lines are stowed away safely and readily accessible for use. If your boat is already in the water, inspect the bilge before you start the motor to make certain you're not taking in water. Make sure you have all the safety equipment on board before you go, and make sure everyone on board knows where it is and how to use it. The minimum safety equipment that must be carried varies according to the type and size of your vessel. Your boating handbook will give you the precise requirements for your waters. Personal flotation devices, or PFDs, are the most important piece of safety equipment on any vessel. A PFD-1 is also known as a life jacket. PFD-2 and PFD-3 are also known as buoyancy vests. Each PFD must fit the person it is intended for. All boats must have an approved life jacket or PFD-1 for each person on board. Water skiers and PWC or jet ski riders must wear either a PFD-1, 2 or 3 within the appropriate conditions. PFDs must be easily accessible and thus taken out of their packaging, and everyone on board should know how to use them. When choosing a life jacket or PFD for a child, make sure it fits. In some states, all children under 10 years must wear an approved life jacket or buoyancy vest while in a boat underway, unless the child is within a deckhouse, cabin, or secured enclosed space. All smaller vessels must have a bailer or manual pump. Larger vessels must have efficient bilge pumping arrangements and buckets with lanyards attached. Small vessels up to 5 meters must have 2 paddles or oars. All vessels must have a waterproof torch or lantern in working order. Make sure the battery is not low before you go. Carrying a spare battery is a wise precaution. When fuel is carried, including fuel for cooking devices, all boats must have an approved fire extinguisher. All vessels must have an approved type of anchor with the appropriate chain and length of rope attached for the area and depth of water you'll encounter. All vessels must have approved distress flares, and when travelling well offshore, an approved EPIRB. Check your safety handbook for the specific requirements for your state. Larger vessels over 8 metres must have an efficient compass, and those over 12 metres must also carry 2 approved life buoys and a dinghy or life raft. Although not compulsory under regulations, there are other things the sensible boat operator would want to have on board to enhance safety, confidence and enjoyment. For example, a first aid kit, drinking water, and a marine radio.